What if everything you've been told about happiness is a lie? What if the constant search for connection, the endless need to fill every moment with noise, is the very thing keeping you from peace? Imagine for a second that the most powerful choice you can make in life isn't to chase success, recognition, or even love. It's to choose solitude. The idea is uncomfortable, isn't it? We're taught to fear being alone, to think it's a sign of weakness or failure. But what if, in that very solitude, lies the key to true freedom? We live in a world where being busy is praised, where the more you do, the more you're seen as successful. But here's the truth. Being constantly surrounded, always engaged, and always connected doesn't bring peace. It only distracts you from what truly matters. We confuse being busy with being fulfilled, don't we? We fill our lives with noise, people, distractions, and in doing so we escape the silence that holds the key to self-discovery. You might think, I can't be alone, I need someone with me, I need the crowd, I need the noise. But what if that noise is the very thing that drowns out your real thoughts, your true self? Think about it. Solitude feels uncomfortable, doesn't it? The silence is deafening at first. You feel the pull to reach for your phone, to open your messages, to call someone, anything to fill that void. But here's the catch. This discomfort, this inner unrest, is exactly where growth happens. It's in that moment of stillness that you get to meet yourself, without the mask, without the distractions. We're told that connection with others is the ultimate goal, that it's what makes us human. And yes, human connection is beautiful. But here's the kicker. If you can't connect with yourself first, how can you expect to truly connect with anyone else? If your mind is constantly racing, constantly distracted, constantly filled with other people's expectations, how will you ever hear your own voice? So we live in this paradox. The more we seek comfort in the company of others, the more we avoid the discomfort of being alone. But that discomfort? It's not the enemy. It's a door to clarity, a door to understanding who you really are without the influence of everyone else's opinions. What if solitude is not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced, not as a punishment, but as an opportunity to find peace within yourself, to build the foundation of who you are, so that when you step into relationships, into the noise of the world, you're doing so from a place of inner strength and clarity. And that's where the true freedom lies, not in constantly seeking connection, but in learning to be comfortable with yourself, in the quiet, in the silence. Because once you can sit with your own thoughts, once you can truly be alone without feeling incomplete, you'll find a freedom most people never experience. It's not about avoiding discomfort, it's about using it. The Stoics understood something that we often overlook in our busy, distracted lives. True strength doesn't come from filling every moment with external noise. It comes from mastering the internal world. They knew that to truly know yourself, you must be able to sit with your thoughts without running away from them. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Imagine that. A retreat within yourself, a place of solitude that offers peace, clarity, and insight. It's a radical idea, isn't it? We're so used to seeking peace in others, in activities, in the external world, but what the Stoics taught was simple. If you can't find peace within yourself, no external circumstance will ever be enough. You'll always be searching for something more. You'll always feel incomplete, disconnected from who you truly are. And that's the trap most people fall into. We're constantly reaching outwards for validation, for comfort, for meaning. But the Stoics taught us that true clarity, true peace, comes when we look inward. It's not about avoiding our thoughts or suppressing our feelings. It's about observing them without judgment, without the need to change them, just to understand them. Take Seneca, another Stoic thinker, who once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." How many times do we feel anxious, stressed, or overwhelmed by thoughts of things that might happen, things that haven't even occurred yet? We're constantly trapped in our own minds, imagining future worries, and yet we're missing out on the present moment. The Stoics weren't saying that we should avoid discomfort or silence. They were teaching us that silence is the space where we find the truth of who we are. When everything external is stripped away, all that remains is you, your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, raw, unfiltered, and untainted by the noise of the world. To truly understand yourself, to master your mind and emotions, you have to be willing to sit in that discomfort. The discomfort of silence, the discomfort of being with your own thoughts, without running away. This is where the magic happens. This is where real growth begins. And once you start practicing this, you begin to see the world differently, not through the lens of fear, anxiety, or distraction, but through the lens of clarity, self-awareness, and strength. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, captured it perfectly. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. When you step into solitude and face your own mind, you begin to understand what you can control and what you can't. You start to realize that so much of the stress and anxiety you experience is due to trying to control things outside of your influence, other people, circumstances, the future. But here's the truth the Stoics knew. We cannot control the world around us, but we can control how we respond to it. This is the heart of Stoic wisdom, and solitude is the perfect training ground for learning this. In the quiet moments of reflection, when nothing is distracting you, you start to see where your thoughts and emotions are coming from. You begin to take ownership of your reactions, your responses, and your inner world. By turning inward, the Stoics believed we could cultivate a sense of peace that nothing in the external world could disturb. Marcus Aurelius also said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The strength to face life's challenges doesn't come from avoiding solitude or distraction. It comes from using solitude to face yourself. It comes from practicing the art of turning inward, of observing your thoughts, your fears, your desires, without reacting to them. Only then do you gain the clarity and peace that comes from truly understanding who you are. So, why does solitude matter in Stoicism? Because it's the practice that leads to the inner freedom that the Stoics spoke of. When we embrace the discomfort of being alone with ourselves, we begin to strip away the distractions, the noise, and the illusions of the external world. What's left is clarity, a deep understanding of yourself, your motivations, and your true purpose. Think about your own life for a moment. When was the last time you truly sat alone, without a phone buzzing, without someone else's voice in the background, without the pressure to be anywhere, do anything, or be someone you're not? It's harder than it seems, isn't it? To truly be alone, without any distractions, without the need to fill the silence. Most of us, when we have a moment of solitude, immediately reach for our phones, turn on the TV, or seek out company. The thought of being alone for too long feels uncomfortable, almost unnatural. But why? Why do we feel that way? What is it about silence that makes us so uneasy? Is it because we're afraid of what we might find in that silence? Is it the fear of facing ourselves without any distractions or masks? Think back to a time when you were alone, really alone, not just physically but mentally. Were you at peace? Or did your thoughts feel like they were suffocating you? Maybe you found yourself reaching for anything to fill the gap that seemed to grow the longer you sat in that stillness. But here's the truth, that discomfort, that tension, isn't a sign of weakness. It's the very beginning of self-discovery. You see, the discomfort we feel when we're alone isn't because something is wrong, it's because something is waiting to be discovered. Beneath the noise, beneath the distractions, is the part of you that has been waiting to be seen, to be understood, and to be accepted. We all have our reasons for avoiding solitude. Maybe it's the fear of confronting unresolved emotions or questions we've put off for years. Maybe it's the need to be constantly busy because being still makes us feel unproductive or unimportant. Or maybe it's because we've been conditioned to think that we need others to validate us, to tell us who we are, to give us purpose. But here's the kicker. When you rely on others to define you, you're giving away your power. You're letting the world shape your sense of self. And when you're constantly chasing the next distraction, the next relationship, or the next experience, you're missing out on the most important relationship of all, the one with yourself. So what would happen if you chose to be present with your thoughts, with your emotions, with the quiet that comes with being alone? What would it feel like to let go of the distractions and just be with yourself, with no agenda, no pressure, and no expectation? For most of us, it's not an easy choice. The pull of external validation, the desire for connection, the need to escape from our own minds, these are powerful forces. But the question remains, do we live our lives based on what others think we should be? Or do we choose to live in a way that aligns with who we truly are? Reflect on this. How much of your life has been shaped by your desire to avoid yourself? How many of your choices have been influenced by the fear of being alone with your thoughts? How often have you let distractions or relationships define your worth, your purpose, or your happiness? The Stoics believed that self-understanding is the foundation of a meaningful life. To know yourself is to have power over your thoughts, your reactions, and your emotions. And the only way to truly know yourself is to spend time alone, without distractions, without noise, and without the influence of others. When you allow yourself to sit in silence, to be present with your own thoughts and emotions, something powerful begins to happen. You start to separate yourself from your external circumstances, from the opinions of others, and from the need for constant validation. You begin to observe yourself without judgment, without expectation, and without the need to change anything. And in that observation, you gain clarity. You see, being alone isn't about escaping life. It's about stepping back from the constant noise and distraction long enough to actually see what's real. When you stop filling every moment with external input, you start to notice things you never saw before. The patterns in your thinking, the motivations behind your actions, and the desires that drive you. In that silence, you have the chance to discover your true self, unfiltered, unedited, and unshaped by the world around you. And once you start to understand who you are, without the influence of others, everything begins to change. At first, it feels overwhelming. Sitting in silence, with nothing to distract you, can be like standing in the eye of a storm. The stillness is unsettling. Your mind races. Thoughts flood in, thoughts you've been avoiding, memories you've pushed aside, doubts you've ignored. They all come rushing to the surface, almost too fast to keep up with. It feels like chaos. But this, right here, is the beginning of your transformation. You see, when you first sit with yourself, the discomfort is a signal, not of something wrong, but of something right. It's the mind's resistance to being seen clearly without the haze of distractions. At first, it's tempting to flee from this feeling, to grab your phone, to reach out to someone, to turn on the TV. Anything to silence the noise inside your head. But what if, instead of running, you stayed? What if, instead of trying to escape the discomfort, you sat with it, not as a victim of it, but as an observer? The trick is to stop reacting, stop trying to fix what feels uncomfortable. Allow yourself to experience the discomfort without judgment. Don't label it as bad or wrong, just feel it, sit with it, and let it be. At first, this will feel strange, unnatural. You may even feel like you're losing your grip on yourself. But the more you practice, the more you'll begin to see a subtle shift. The noise that once felt so loud starts to quiet down. The thoughts that overwhelmed you begin to slow. You'll start to notice patterns in how you think, how you react, and what drives your emotions. And this is where the transformation happens. When you move from reacting to observing, you move from being a victim of your thoughts to being the master of them. You begin to understand that your thoughts are not who you are. They are simply what's passing through your mind. And you don't have to respond to them immediately. You don't have to act on every emotion, every impulse. In this space of stillness, you start to separate yourself from the chaos of your mind. You become the observer. You watch your thoughts without judgment. You see the patterns you've been running from, the fears you've been avoiding, the truths you've been too scared to face. And instead of being swept away by them, you start to understand them. You begin to see things clearly, your motivations, your desires, your fears, and that clarity, even if it's uncomfortable at first, begins to change you. This process of transformation is gradual. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not about having all the answers immediately. It's about creating space to ask the right questions. It's about becoming more aware of who you are, what you need, and what you want, without the noise of the world telling you who you should be. The first step in this transformation is learning to sit with discomfort. It's not about seeking pleasure or avoiding pain. It's about being present with whatever comes up and allowing it to unfold without trying to control it. And as you sit with that discomfort, as you stay in that space, something magical begins to happen. You start to feel more grounded, more certain, more clear. It's in this space of solitude that you begin to build your own foundation, not one that's dependent on others, not one that's shaped by external influences, but one that's rooted in who you truly are. And that foundation, built from self-awareness, from the ability to sit with discomfort and still find peace, becomes unshakable. It's like peeling back layers. At first, it's painful. You may find parts of yourself you didn't know were there, parts you've been avoiding, parts you've been suppressing. But as you continue to sit with it, as you continue to observe without reacting, you begin to understand these parts. You learn to accept them. You learn to see them without judgment. And once you do, they lose their power over you. The transformation doesn't come from avoiding discomfort, it comes from embracing it. It comes from allowing yourself to sit with what feels uneasy, what feels unsettling, and letting it be a part of your journey. Because as you do, you begin to see things more clearly. You begin to understand yourself more deeply. And from that place of understanding, clarity, and self-awareness, everything changes. Think about your relationships for a moment. How often do we react to people, to situations, not from a place of clarity, but from the noise inside our heads, from fears, assumptions, and expectations that we've never truly questioned? How often do we engage in conversations or make decisions because we're afraid of being alone with our thoughts? What if I told you that the chaos you feel in relationships, the miscommunications, the misunderstandings, the emotional roller coasters might not be entirely about the other person? What if it's more about the way you're reacting to yourself? The way you're avoiding your own mind, your own needs, your own emotions, because the silence feels too heavy to bear? Think back to a time when you found yourself in a conversation or a disagreement, and instead of listening to what the other person was saying, you were simply reacting, maybe out of fear or defensiveness, or even just out of habit. You might not have been listening to the other person's words as much as you were listening to the thoughts in your head, shaping your responses. You were more focused on being heard, on being understood, than on truly understanding yourself. In these moments, we don't realize it, but we're not just responding to the other person. We're responding to our own inner turmoil, to our own unresolved thoughts and emotions. And that's where the conflict begins. When we haven't taken the time to sit with ourselves, to reflect on our own thoughts and feelings, we're constantly projecting that internal chaos onto others. We're not engaging from a place of peace, but from a place of reaction. Now, let's shift gears. Think about the times when you were truly at peace with yourself, not when everything around you was perfect, but when you had learned to be still, to be present with your thoughts, without the need to fill the silence. It's in those moments that you understand what true connection feels like. Not the kind that depends on the other person filling the gaps in your life, but the kind that comes from being whole within yourself. Solitude isn't about escaping life, it's about embracing it, without the filters, without the distractions. It's about connecting with yourself so deeply that you no longer need to rely on others to define who you are. The Stoics understood this perfectly. They weren't advocating for loneliness, for withdrawal from the world. They were advocating for self-mastery. They knew that when you're at peace with who you are, you can move through the world with more clarity, more compassion, and more purpose. But how many of us actually take the time to do this? How many of us sit with our thoughts long enough to truly understand them? Instead, we're running, constantly moving, constantly seeking out distractions because silence feels uncomfortable. It's easier to stay busy than to face the mess inside. It's easier to look outward for validation than to look inward for clarity. This is where the intellectual side of Stoicism meets the emotional heart of human experience. The Stoics didn't just see solitude as a philosophical ideal, they saw it as a tool for emotional freedom. It's in those quiet moments, when everything is stripped away, that you can finally hear your true voice. It's in solitude that you realize you don't need anyone else to validate your worth. You don't need to be constantly busy to feel important. You don't need to be distracted to feel alive. And this understanding doesn't just come from reading philosophy, it comes from real life. From the moments when we stop running from ourselves and start facing what's underneath. It's the discomfort of sitting in silence that eventually gives way to a profound sense of peace. It's the willingness to face our own emotions, to let them surface, and to observe them without judgment that brings clarity. Think about the last time you had a quiet moment, where you didn't rush to fill the space with noise or activity. What did you notice? Did you feel restless, anxious, or maybe even a little bit lost? Or did you feel something else? A sense of space, of possibility, of something deep within you awakening. That's what Stoicism is really about, not just abstract ideas, but real, tangible change in the way we experience our lives. It's about taking responsibility for our emotional world and finding the strength to face it head-on. It's about realizing that the discomfort we feel isn't something to avoid, but something to learn from. And when we begin to do this, when we begin to embrace solitude and face the silence, we start to change. Not in big, dramatic ways, but in small, meaningful shifts that ripple through our lives. We become more aware of our thoughts, more in control of our reactions, and more grounded in who we truly are.